Hello, my name is Wayne Alexander, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the new functionalities that was released in the CRM 2013 Spring release, which is service level agreements. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate over to the settings area of CRM, and from the settings area I'm just going to go to service management, and from within service management I'm going to go ahead and select service level agreement. Now, a service level agreement record is a parent record that will hold all of the SLA details. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on new here to create a new service level agreement. Now for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a service level agreement for standard support. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this standard support SLA. Now applicable from, you'll notice it's defaulted to created on. If I was to click on the drop down, I can change from created on to modified on, follow up by, record created on, resolved by, first response by, or escalated on. Now this field here, applicable from, ties in very closely with the SLA details. For example, if I was to create an SLA detail to say the first response time has to be within an hour, then what the system would do to work out that calculation of an hour, it will base it on whatever date field is within the applicable from. We've also got your business hours here. You can obviously set your business hours for SLA. You'll notice it's not a required field. If the business hours is left blank, the system would assume that the SLA works for 24 hours. It's 24-hour SLA. You've also got your description here, and finally your SLA details. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And when I hit save, two things is going to happen. First of all, you'll notice that the applicable from suddenly has a padlock. It's locked now. So once you save an SLA agreement, you can't change the data within the applicable from field. And also we can now add our SLA details. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the plus button to add my SLA detail. Now for this example of SLA, I'm going to create an SLA to say if the case equals high priority, then I want the first response by time to be within a specific time. Now you'll notice it says here related case field. By default it's set to first response by. I could actually say for high priority cases, maybe I want them resolved by a specific time or followed up by a specific time, but I'm going to leave it on first response by. I'm going to give the SLA a name. I'll just call that high priority. Whoops, my caps are on. I'll call that high priority cases. Applicable when. Now think of an SLA item almost as a combination of advanced fine and a workflow. I say advanced fine because this should look very familiar to anyone who uses CRM, because this does look like advanced fine, and what we're putting in here is a filter to actually trigger this SLA. So I'm going to say where the case priority equals to high. This is what's going to actually trigger our SLA. If I scroll down, we've also got the success criteria. So as far as the system's concerned, what would make this a success? So I'm going to say where the case first response sent equals to yes. Now you're going to find actually, because of this new functionality, new fields have been added with new names. So it'll take a bit of getting used to, but that's exactly what this is. If I continue to scroll down, we've got SLA item failure and SLA item warning. So what would make this a failure? So I'm going to leave it as it is. I could change it if I wanted to, from 1 hour to 1.5 to 2 to 5 hours, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to say if the first response time is not done within 1 hour for a high priority case, it's considered a failure. What we can also do is put a warning in place to say you can warn the user of the or the owner of the case after a set time. And again, I could choose my set time. I'm going to leave that on 30 minutes. Now you'll notice there's a failure actions and warning actions here that are pretty much grayed out at the moment. But if we were to go ahead and hit save, what the system will now allow us to do is to add actions to our failure and our warning. And I said at the beginning that the SLA item is a combination of advanced fine and workflows, and the reason being is because if I now scroll down, I can add a step to my failure. Add a step to my failure action, and I'm going to say I could choose from sending an email, create a record, update a record, assign a record, or change status. I'm going to actually update the case record. I'm going to update the case record to say that basically if this SLA fails, then I'm just going to update a field within the case record. Now some of these fields I mentioned before, this is one of them, is a new field added specifically for SLA. It's fantastic because it allows you to create reports and charts based on this data. So I'm going to say non-compliant, in other words it failed, and save and close. If I wanted to, I could have sent an email, maybe send an email to the manager of the owner of the case and let them know that it's failed its SLA. And I'm going to do something similar for warning actions. So I'm going to click on add a step. I say it's a combination of workflows, but it doesn't give you all the functionality of workflows. So I'm going to update a record again and update my case, set properties, and this time for my resolved by SLA status, I'm going to go ahead and change that to nearing non-compliance and save and close. Okay, I want to create one more SLA item. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and click save and new, and I'm just going to go ahead and create one for normal priority cases. Okay, just going to quickly run through this, do exactly the same thing. So cases where priority equals to normal. For the success, again it will be cases where the first response sent equals to yes. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but this time obviously the failure after the time will change. So I'm going to say actually we'll give it 3 hours for failure because it's normal priority, and let's warn us after 2 hours. Again, you've got to hit that save button because those actions can't become available until you do hit save. And now we could add our actions. So I'll do exactly the same thing as I did before. As I said, you could do several things, but all I'm going to do for the purpose of this example is I'm just going to update these case records. Scroll down here. Non-compliant, save and close. Obviously you can, as with workflows, you can update the record based on custom fields if you wish. So I'm going to update the record again and set this one to nearing non-compliant, and there you go. Now you'll notice that with both of these SLA items that I did, I always set the applicable when. You don't have to set the applicable when. You could leave that blank. And if you were to leave that applicable when blank, think of it as a fallback SLA, because what it means is that it will get triggered, but there's no criteria for it to get triggered. So for high priority and normal priority, it will trigger based on changing of the priority status. But for this SLA, if you didn't put applicable when, it will just automatically run this SLA. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and hit save and close. So we've created our two SLAs there, high and normal. The order of these SLAs matter. It's very important. So what the system would do is, if you were to apply an SLA to a case, for example, or if an SLA was acting on the case, it will run through these SLA details in order. So it will start with high priority, then normal priority, and so on and so forth. So if you created an SLA item which didn't have an applicable when, and you stuck it at the top of this list, the system would automatically trigger that SLA first before going through. It's almost similar to business process flows, where it puts them in order. The order matters. Okay, so we created our standard support SLA and we've added our two SLA details. Like workflows, you must activate your SLA, so I'm just going to activate it here so that we can actually use it. And okay, we're good to go. Now, there's two ways an SLA could be applied to a case. Now, the first way is through an entitlement, which I'm going to go ahead and cover in another video. But for an example, if I created an entitlement for premium support, then what I could do is I could associate a premium support SLA to that entitlement. And what it means is you can then associate that entitlement to a customer record. And when a case is created from that customer record, it would automatically pull in the correct entitlement with the correct SLA to it. That's one way. The other way is to make the SLA, set it as default, I should say. If I was to go ahead and set it as default, which I'm going to go ahead and do now, setting an SLA as default is almost like a fallback SLA. What it will allow you to do is, say for example, if you were to create a case and you associated it to an entitlement, the first thing the system would do is check to see if that entitlement has an SLA associated to it. And if it does have an SLA, it will work absolutely fine. If it doesn't have an SLA, what the system will do is it will go and use the default SLA, which is the one that you set to default. So as I said, you can only set one SLA to default, which we've just done here. So let's go ahead and see it in action. So let's just jump over to services quickly. Let's go ahead and create a new case. And within the new case here, I'm just going to go ahead and let's just pick a customer. So the customer field here, let me pick Blue Yonder. There you go. Right, now you'll notice there's an entitlement section here. You can't actually add, there is no entitlement listed here because we didn't apply one to this particular customer. Again, we'll cover that in another video. If I scroll down here, you'll notice there's an applicable SLA, first response by and resolved by. They're blank at the moment, but if I was to go ahead and click save, oops, I need to give it a title, of course. Let me just call that testing SLA and hit save again. Now if I scroll down, you'll notice that the first response by is populated. Why is it populated? Because it's using the default SLA that we set up. The priority is set to normal. Remember we said that the first response by has to be within 3 hours. If I was to go ahead and change that from normal to high and then hit save, let's just save my changes there, you'll notice the first response by has changed. So it's triggering the SLAs based on the priority, and it's almost asynchronous, isn't it? Where it's instantaneous. As soon as you hit save, you can see the SLA times has changed there. It's a great functionality that's been added to for CRM 2013. It just makes life easier for end users to be able to create these SLA using the user interface. Thank you.